I'm sure many of us know someone, if not you, who's felt uncomfortable talking about religion and money or just have feelings of shame or guilt about it. Welcome to Yahweh's Money, a podcast where we discuss the crossroads or intersections of religion and money. We're going to go deep into topics like tithing and saving and debt and so much more from the religious view. I'm your host, Shay Cook, CEO and founder, Crusaders for Change, LLC, and our co-host is Vanessa McNelly, one of our financial counselor, coach, educators. Let's talk about God and money. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another recording of Yahweh's Money, another episode. Hey, to my co-host, Vanessa. How you doing?
Hey, Shay, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to talk about not breaking the bank around education, which
I
a lot of us have
agree.
experienced. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a hot
So
topic.
it is a hot topic. Higher education costs, student loans, there's so much going on. I mean, with the higher cost of education, paying for college has become increasingly difficult for many, many families. The average cost, which is crazy, for a student attending a 4-year in-state public university and living on campus is $104,108 over 4 years. And I can attest to that. My daughter just graduated in May of 2023, and she from a university local, and it was $100,000. We paid 95 out of top pocket. Thank God we were able to
Wow.
do that.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of money. So can you imagine looking at an out of state university these days around like 60, like 30 to 60 a year,
Right. It's
if not
crazy.
more? It's
It's
crazy.
crazy.
So, according to a national survey from Discover Student Loans, 70% of parents are worried about having enough money to pay for college this year. So, as Christians, we know that God does not want us to worry and to seek Him in everything. As Philippians 4:6-7 says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So, what are we supposed to do when we're worried about paying for students or paying for college? As a
Yeah.
parent, as a student, I mean, it's a lot of worry there.
There is a ton of worry. And I think a lot of it too is what good does worrying do, first
Mm,
off? Does worrying give us anything like an advantage over anything? Does
mm.
it help us with anything? No, it just causes more stress.
It really does.
So, someone who worries about these things constantly, they're just going to find themselves in a place where they're more isolated probably, and and they're just in a more negative headspace altogether. So I think if we can look at things and say, you know, it may not be exactly what we want, we may not
Mm.
have the answers, but there's always a way, and it may not be our way.
Amen. Exactly. You might make an irrational decision based off of that worry, right? Or
Right,
go to the wrong
exactly.
school or
Yeah,
pay way more than you should because you haven't done the work. And look, as we're going to talk later about the scholarships and the grants and stuff, the
right.
opportunities. But if you're so worried about that, you might miss out on those opportunities. And God is here to bless
Exactly.
us. And if you're really supposed to be at that college, I mean, I'm telling you, there's a
Yep.
feeling like God will like if you're listening, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
right? You will
Right.
have a feeling like this is where I'm supposed to be. And so then, and he
Exactly.
will find a way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And just bringing it back to parents worrying,
Mm,
it doesn't have to always be the parents' worry. If
yeah,
it's something that child really, really wants and it's something that is important to them, they should have a stake in the game too, in my
exactly.
opinion.
I totally agree with that. So, if we go a little deeper into Philippians 4, it says, or 6-7 says, imagine never worrying about anything. It seems like an impossibility, right? But we all have worries on this job, in our homes, at school. But Paul's advice, who this applies to, this scripture, to turn our worries into prayers. That's what he says. If you're worried, you need to pray. And I
Right.
totally agree with that. Do you want to worry less? Of course you do. Then pray more. Whenever you want to worry, stop and pray. And I
Right.
think that's a great advice because if anything, if even if you don't believe in prayer or whatever, but if you do, like stopping and pray, it really not only gives you that connection to God and it opens up your faith,
Right.
but it just gives you a time to be still. And sometimes the best thing, even again, if you're Christian or not, or you're religious or not, being still and meditating on whatever, it really helps you just make, I think, rational decisions.
I totally. And I think when you bring it forward, a lot of us have these worries we keep in us and we don't express them. So
Mhm.
even if you're just praying to get it out, sometimes just
Mm,
letting things out really helps to just clear your mind because it's been in there for so long and you
exactly.
just needed to say it and get it out there. So, yeah, if you can pray and say, this is what's going on, this is what I feel, let it go. And then you've done what you could at that point,
Exactly.
too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it just takes that burden away from you. You're not as
Hmm.
heavy and you're more clear in trying to make that decision or just waiting on the
Exactly.
decision to show itself. Like the answer will come,
Right.
right? It
Right.
really does.
Exactly.
It comes if you wait, if you're patient. So, and planning and preparation are also vital to easing your worries. So, in Luke 14:28-29 says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? And that's so
Totally.
true. Like we've already said this. We're like taking your time to sit down, to be
Hmm.
still, to
Hmm.
estimate it, to look at the cost of the
Right.
school or schools you're looking at. I know we did that for my daughter. Anywhere from NYU and Duke University was like 60,000 a year to a Howard, which was 40, and UMBC was 25,000 a year.
Right.
And and I didn't want her to go to the cheap school, but I wanted her to go to the right school for her. And thank God
Exactly.
she chose the lesser of all those, but still, it was a lot of money. And she had a stake in it. We had her take some student loans, and so it could be on her.
Right.
But then as the pandemic hit and it was just getting so, stressful, we are like, you know what, God has blessed us. Let
Yeah.
us help her.
Mhm.
But yeah, it can be crazy. It's
It
just,
Well, and I don't understand people who are like, I'm gonna go here no matter what, and they don't do any other research because
mm,
it happens so often. It's like
yeah.
that is a pipe dream. And they're like, oh, I'm gonna go to the school, it's gonna be wonderful, I'm gonna live on campus, I'm gonna have all these amazing things, but yet you've not thought about it until maybe your senior year of high school. And
Mm,
you really can't do that. If that's something that's important to you, it should be important to you for a while. So it's not something that's just kind of a whim. Because a lot of people do go to college and they drop out their first semester or their first year because that school is not where they're supposed to be.
exactly. Or they're not supposed to be in college at all, or they should have took. I
Exactly.
love the idea of a gap year. If
Agreed.
like, a lot of people don't understand that concept. It's like, you're just coming out of high school. You just went through 12 years of grueling, maybe not, or you loved it. It depends on the person.
Yeah.
But you come out and you don't know what you want to do at 18 and
No, you
19.
don't.
So why are you going to go? And that's why I love also the idea of going to a community college, because
Exactly.
for a
Exactly.
quarter or even an eighth of
Yeah.
the cost, you
Yeah.
can get your basics, general requirements out of the way, live your
Right.
life as an adult,
Mm-hmm.
probably still stay at home, which is fine with that too. And,
Exactly.
and then learn about, okay, this is what I'm really interested in. Then go to the university or
Exactly.
college. Like, I don't,
Exactly.
yeah, it's crazy.
I don't understand how 18-year-olds are supposed to know what they want to do for the
They
rest of
not
their life,
supposed to. That's why I used to always tell my daughter, like,
right?
you don't even need to know.
Right. And that's the expectation is, people who have always known what they wanted to do are
Mm-hmm.
like, well, how do you not know? And why do you
I
not know? And
know. That's so
I
true.
had no clue. Like, I really thought I was going to go to school for cosmetology.
Oh,
And
wow. This
then
is
it
my
was
first time
like
ever hearing that.
last second, I was like, okay, maybe I should go to college, but I don't know where I want to go. I don't know what I want to study.
Mm,
And I'm very thankful I had a mother who kind of fostered my curiosities with all that. And she was just like, go to community college, see what you want to do. You don't have to declare a major for,
mm-hmm.
until really your, I guess, end of your second year. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. I lived at home. I hated my first year of college and I knew that was not where I was supposed to be. But I took that year to find where I was supposed to be,
Mm,
and I tried different jobs out while I was doing
yeah.
that and worked part time. So I knew what I wanted to study. And I think it's a great way to explore what you want life to look like. And you have more freedom doing that because you're not
Yes.
stuck in that environment of
Exactly.
everybody around me is in a dorm. We're all doing the same thing. Everybody's studying this. You have the ability to just be you for a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
see what makes sense to you in your future.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. The freedom is very important. These kids,
Definitely.
again, are feeling so pressured to
Yeah.
declare a major, declare a life that
Right.
they have no clue at 19 or 18 through 21, 22, or even older, and then spending all of this money. You meet so many people
Yeah.
that that declare a major that I'll never forget. I'm like all over the place because for a reason, because my mind is like, oh, I remember a friend who went to law school and got
Right.
a law degree and took the bar and passed it, and it's like, I don't want to be a lawyer. I was like, oh my god. And I hear those stories a lot, like, oh, I went to school for
Right.
this and I'm doing
Right.
this. I'm like, how is
Yeah.
that connected? Like,
Exactly.
because you were so young,
Exactly.
you had no clue what you want to do, and that is
No idea.
okay.
It is, exactly. I know I've always encouraged younger people. I got a stepdaughter who graduated in 2020 during the pandemic
Wow.
from college, and she went to a state school as well. But we had really helped to kind of foster the thought of, you're going to go to school. Who knows what you're going to do after? Do a
Hmm.
broad major. She had some great scholarships. Everything was 100% paid for,
Oh,
those type of
nice.
things. But when it came down to it, she still does not work in the field she studied.
Mm.
I don't work in the field I studied originally, too. I mean, I think that's something we all kind of have to go through. But I could not imagine telling my child or niece or nephew, here is a timeline. By this date, you need to know what you're going to do so you can learn more about it. And you've never tried something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, it's about passion. For me, my
Yeah.
daughter, she knew she wanted to be in a STEM field, and then really narrowed it down to environmental science and then policy through
Right.
college. Like, she followed her passion. And to me, that is more important. To me, I followed
Agree.
my passion. I went to school for computer engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Then when they told me I really wanted to do software, and they told, like, you have to work on hardware, I was like, I don't want to work on hardware. I mean, I didn't want to work on software, excuse me. I wanted to work on hardware. And they're like, you got to
Yeah.
learn the software before you do the hardware. I'm like, okay. So then I went to political science. And
Right.
then that was during the time that the whole Monica Lewinsky and President Clinton crap. And that's all my professors wanted to talk about was Monica Lewinsky. I'm like, okay, I'm changing my major again. So then I decided. And then finally, I'll never forget, in UMBC, I went to a psychology class and fell in love
Mm,
with the study of human behavior. Like, it
right.
gives me chills to say I love that subject. Like, that is where it was at. And
Yeah.
so I declared psychology. Then I got a degree in psychology and my master's. And because and I love, 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 love everything
Right.
about psychology.
Yeah.
But every time I would try to get a job around it, I couldn't. And so, long story short, I'm not going to go into my whole story about that. I'm in financial counseling now, got a financial counseling business. But guess what? Psychology, study of human behavior, and mental finances goes hand in hand.
Completely part
And
of
so,
that.
but to me,
Yes.
that was God. Like, He had me follow
Yeah.
my passion. So
Right.
taking it back to
Right.
God and listening to your
Agree.
spirit. I think
Agree.
that's what
Agree.
we need to be teaching these kids. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
are you passionate about? Like,
Agree.
if you had
Yeah.
all the money in the world, all the time in the world, what would you want to do? And even if you don't know right away, that's fine. But if you, like you said, a broad subject like
Yep.
environmental science, that is so
Yep.
broad. Like, my daughter can do so many things under that
Yeah.
umbrella. And so, psychology, I can do so many things under that umbrella.
Right.
And
Right.
but it is something that I was passionate about, and God
Hmm.
really led me to. So I think those are two things when I talk to young people are like, what are you passionate about? If you
Exactly.
believe in God, I hope you do. But if you do, like, please
Mm-hmm.
ask God to show you.
Right.
You might have to take a couple years. You might need to go on the trade route. You don't have to go to college.
No, you
Like,
don't.
I was just talking to my neighbor who's a school teacher, and she's like, they're finally in our counties teaching kids, like, there's other things other than college. You don't have to keep these kids.
Right.
All these kids are not going to go to college. So why are you
Mm-mm.
trying to teach them all about how to get into college? Like,
Agree. Agree.
I think that's very important.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, going to college sometimes is not even about what you learn in books. It's about the
Mm, the
experiences that you
experience.
have and what you learn there. So I grew up very, very sheltered Southern Baptist where there were tons and tons of rules. And I went to a Pentecostal college that
Hmm.
was a little more liberal. And I remember going to tour the school and I saw people with nose rings, and I saw green hair, and I saw,
That-
very different things than my interpretation of
yeah.
being a Christian. And I
Mhm.
loved it. And
Mhm.
I was like, you don't have to be one specific way to believe in God.
Exactly.
And I was able to kind of foster that and open my eyes to things. And, we were taught to question religion and
Mhm.
question our beliefs, when before I was told it is because it is. So that was the experience that I got in college. And it was such an eye opening experience to say,
Yeah.
you don't have to live this one little specific life. You
Exactly.
can literally be anything to anybody as long as you have the morals and the grounding of Christianity,
Mm.
and be successful in what you're doing. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's so many ways and so many things to look at an education like that. But, what you're saying about not going to school, I think that's more and more true. Looking at the cost and saying, will I make this back? Will it make sense to
Yeah.
go to school?
Yeah, it's crazy. When I hear my daughter, a lot of her friends are pre-med, I'm like, oh my God, it's like so expensive. And then the amount of time it's going to take you to even start making a paycheck, like
Oh,
a real paycheck to pay that student
right.
loans back.
Exactly.
It's just crazy. And speaking of just paying for it, I mean, whether you're a parent or student, developing a simple budget to see where you are financially would give you an idea of what you can afford. And like I'm
Right.
sure we've had many clients that just really can't afford it. And they're like literally calling us like, how am I gonna pay for my kid's college? My kid is a sophomore, they're a junior, they're a
Exactly.
senior. I'm like, well, you probably should have been saving years ago, but not everybody has that
Right.
capability, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then there's ways, but when you're looking at your budget, you should definitely look at all the money that's coming
Mm-hmm.
in, your
Mm-hmm.
income, any side hustle money, all of your expenses, track your expenses for 30 or more days to see
Yep.
where your money is going. And then all of the costs that are associated with college and universities,
Right.
tuition, books, transportation, moving expenses. I've had a lot of conversations recently with friends and family whose kids are just considering going out of state and how much it costs for airfare and travel.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, nah, you're staying in state because it's just too
Right.
expensive to even, because they're going to
Right.
want to come home or you're
Of
going to want to see
course.
them. So you
Yeah.
have to really consider those expenses.
Agree. Agree.
Yeah.
And I think it's okay too to have these conversations when your children are young. If you have a partner,
Yes.
talk it over with your partner
Mm-hmm.
and decide what you are going to give towards this. It doesn't have to be the parent's burden. It doesn't
Exactly.
have to be. It is okay if you do not pay for your children to go to college.
For real.
And I think so many parents are not okay with that answer.
Mm,
And I think a lot of it stems from they didn't have the help that they wanted or saw other people with. But reality is that is a huge undertaking
it's a
after
huge
you've
undertaking.
cared for a child for 18 years. I mean, it is a huge expense. And sometimes in our lives, we can afford more, sometimes we can afford less. So, kind of letting those expectations be known with your child early on so that they can kind of wrap their head around it and have realistic expectations for themselves too.
Yeah.
So,
That is so good. So my husband and I had this conversation for years, like
mm-hmm,
literally, I'll never forget because he at one time we were like, we're not paying for her college. Like we were really like dead set
mm-hmm,
because I had like 60, 70,000 student loans I paid
yep,
off in 4 years, but we're like, we're not paying, not paying. But then when we started looking at, and it became a race thing, to be totally honest, I think that,
mm-hmm,
the racial wealth gap, and how, black kids and brown kids are coming out, and or even low income kids are coming out of school with all the
right,
student loan debt, and they're not able to buy houses, they're not able to do this and contribute to society like some other more privileged people are. And so we were like, we don't want her to have that burden, right? We didn't.
yeah,
And God afforded us the finances, the money to be able to offer that to her at the towards the end. We, like I said, and during the pandemic, we are like, you know what? And then UMBC, where she went, cut down on costs because of the pandemic. So there were some factors that allowed us to make a very financial decision. We did the monthly
right,
payment plan. We sacrificed a lot,
mm-hmm,
nothing like major, like, but we were able to do that, and God really provided. But honestly, I already told her she's going to pay for her own masters. We ain't doing all that. I have
agree,
family members
yeah,
that do that. But it's really, like you said, to me, it's about that conversation, what's right for the
Exactly.
family. It can't be an overall, everybody either you're
Mm-mm.
not supposed to pay or you should pay. Like, no, what's right for your family? And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are trying to keep up with whoever and with paying their kids for their kids stuff. It wasn't for that for us. It was like,
Right.
we want Alana to be come out and be able to move in this world, right away and not feel burdened by the debt like I
Mm-hmm.
did. But yeah, I mean, that conversation is very, very important. But there's also a lot
Yeah.
of resources to assist with that. But I'll let you go ahead. Go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the other thing too. But yeah, having that conversation and getting that expectation out there, then that child is not surprised. Because I think a
exactly.
lot of kids are surprised. They're like, "You're not going to pay for school?" Like,
Yes.
like I thought you were going to do this because all my friends' parents are, or that's the feeling. I think if two of your friends' parents are going to do it, they think everybody's getting their school paid for.
Yeah.
But there are times where, what if your parents are divorced? What if they're already paying
Mm.
for two households?
What if they
What if
got
you
other kids?
Exactly. Exactly. It can't be just about one. So
Yeah.
it does need to be something that's fair across the board too, with everybody. But what if one kid doesn't want to go to school and you're already giving this other kid money for school? What do
Yeah.
you do for kid number two?
Exactly.
There's so many things that go into this.
So
So
many.
setting those expectations, letting that child know what they're going to be responsible for,
Mm-hmm.
I think is a beautiful thing. I know when I was in school, my parents told me they weren't paying for my school,
Mm-hmm.
so I was already working hard, saving money. That's why I thought I would go to tech school, do those type of things, and then last minute, my mom was like, "Well, actually, because you've been doing these things, we will help you with tuition," which was
Oh,
wonderful.
nice.
So it was a very unexpected gift, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, and I have always appreciated that help.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was in school, I was in control of everything else in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to figure those things out.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out my housing, my books, my car insurance, all those things
Mm.
that I had to work for while I was
Mm-hmm.
in school. And parents, it is okay if your kids work while they're studying.
Oh my God. Yeah, Lana had a job the whole time. And I've had friends who are like, why is she working? She should be
Right?
focused on her finances. What? She still, even though we're paying for tuition, room, and board, she
Right.
has to pay for food and car and
Mm-hmm.
clothes and going out with her friends. I'm not paying for all that.
No,
I mean,
no.
it's already bad enough. Not bad enough. Blessed. We were blessed enough to pay
Yeah.
for all of that. But I
Right.
am not going to pay for all the incidentals. Like, hell no. Excuse my
Exactly.
language.
Yeah.
But man,
Well,
like,
and a full
no.
time student is spending, 12 to 15 hours a week in class.
Yeah.
And then you're spending what? Maybe 2 hours per hour in class.
Mm-hmm.
If,
For
it's
studying. Yeah.
some it doesn't even take that. It just
Yeah,
depends on the
exactly.
class. So it's okay for people to have a 40-hour a week,
Mm.
school training, and then do 15, 20 hours a
That's
week
exactly what
working.
Alana did. Exactly.
There's nothing wrong
I
with
did it
that.
too. There's nothing
Me
wrong with
too.
that.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just really kept me out there and, helped me, I met a lot of friends during those times,
Hmm.
socialization, all that stuff was very important too.
Right.
So, and then I had money in my pocket when my friends didn't. They were calling home. One of my
Yeah.
roommates had her mom come and buy food. Alana bought her
Right.
own food. Like I didn't have to do that.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
and it's such a you feel like an adult when you're doing those
exactly,
things.
exactly.
And it is a good, easy, toes in the water, stepping into adulthood
Yeah.
moment. And it really helps you to see, oh my goodness, life is expensive. Like there's all these things, and I don't even have a house payment yet, or a car payment, or whatever it might be. So it really helps, I think, young people understand what life after school will look like, and they're more prepared, you know? And that in itself is a gift to
I
being more
agree.
prepared.
Yeah. So true.
Mm. So,
So, there are, like I said, many resources available to assist with paying for college. So, make sure you're assessing each option, whether it's scholarships, college grants, and then the loans, right? We can say it like that. So,
yay,
looking for
loans.
lay loans, loans, yay, I say lay loans, yay, loans. Yeah. Looking for and applying for a scholarship has become a lot easier and it was 5, 10 years ago.
Yes.
So, you got websites, online sites like FastWeb, scholarship.com, collegeboard.com, militaryscholar.org that have thousands. Literally, my daughter and I went through a lot
Hmm.
of these, and you can apply for in a matter of minutes. And just make sure you can filter options to narrow down each search, ensure that you're eligible for those scholarships. And then, of
Right.
course, there's grants through FAFSA or the Federal Student Aid. think we're missing that federal student aid. It allows you to apply for federal grants, work study opportunities, and loans. You have grants.gov. You
Right.
can ask your college financial aid office. And then if you're affiliated with the military, you can contact the Veteran Student Resource Center or liaison. And
Exactly.
lastly, student loans. They've made a lot of headlines over the last couple of years due to increased amount of outstanding loans, but there are some really, that's an option. You don't want to take out too
Right.
many and be weighed down by it, but there's federal loans, there's private loans,
Mm-hmm.
through the free application for federal student aid. That's with FAFSA. You'll have better terms and protections than if you went with a private loan.
Mm-hmm.
But some people can't get those loans, so the federal loans, so they go the private route. And of course, their interest rates might be different, a little higher to different terms, not as many borrower protections. But you know what? It's crucial just to compare the loan offers, read the terms carefully, ensure that you and your child are borrowing responsibly. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many ways to pay for college. And I think the other part of this too is make sure your student is involved with all this.
Yes.
So many parents sit down and do all this for their kid,
Mm-mm.
and it's like they have no skin in the game then.
Not at
If
all.
they want this, they will do the research. They
Exactly.
will take the time. And if they don't want this, why are we doing it anyway?
Exactly.
Why are we
Yeah.
doing this? Like they have to want it. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to do it. It's so much easier than when you and I were in school, Shay, when we had to like actually go and hunt these things and figure these
Exactly.
out
And do
ourselves.
paper applications. I
Right,
remember them
right.
coming to my house with my parents and having them filling out the parent student loan form and me the
Yeah.
one and not really explaining it. Now you got all this training and
Mm-hmm.
education on it, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. And it needs to be the student's responsibility. Even if the parent's helping
Right.
out, it needs to be on the students. Yeah.
Exactly. I remember, yeah, my parents had, they didn't even know what I was applying for. I was just applying for things. And, then it was one day, it was like, okay, well, I have this, this, and this coming in. And my mom was like, oh, okay, cool. So that was great. But like, I did all of that on my own because I was
Mm-hmm.
motivated at that point. Because I knew that if I didn't, I would have to sacrifice other things in life
Exactly.
too. And I think
Exactly.
that's the other part of this. When you are the student going through these things, it is a time of sacrifice. You are giving something up, you some freedom, some extra, fun or funds to do other things to get an education. You cannot have everything at once, and it is okay if you are living on a little at that point. That is your turn to kind of learn what life is about and kind of grow into this adult at that point. And I think a lot of parents don't see it that way. They want their child to have exactly what they had at home. They have these super nice apartments, all these things paid for by parents, and there's never that struggle.
Yeah.
And I am all about the struggle in that period.
You sound like my husband. My daughter's been out of work for 3 months since she's
Yeah,
graduated school, and she's just like, I want to make money. I want to do this. I want to do this. I can't buy this. I can't go to Target. That's her thing. I can't go to Target. I'm like, why can't you go to Target? She's like, I'm going to spend money. I'm like, oh, I'm loving her self control. I'm loving
yeah,
her discipline. Like she
that's
knows, like I
great.
cannot go to Target
Yeah,
because when she would go, she had a paycheck. So
right,
she's just like, and
exactly.
when she said that to me the other day, I was like, oh, I am so proud of you.
That's great. Yeah,
Because she's
yeah.
real and she's feeling the struggle. Like even though
Oh,
she's at home and
yep,
she's really blessed and really privileged. She's just like just from like I said, the incidentals, the clothes, the hair, and
exactly,
all that kind of stuff. She's just like, yeah,
exactly.
because I'm not paying for none of that.
Well, and you shouldn't have to. That's the
Yeah.
other thing about it. And I think that's where some parents just don't understand that they can help their children along the way. They're still being there for their kids.
Hmm.
Even if they're not giving them monetary funds for things,
Yeah.
they're still there for their
Of
kids. And
course.
that's the
Yeah.
part that matters. And yes, nobody wants to take out student loans, but it's okay if you need to. But
Exactly.
look at what you really need. So many people just take what they're given and they use the funds for other things.
Other things.
That
Yeah.
drives me crazy.
It,
Absolutely
I
crazy.
was one of the people that would have drove you
Mm,
crazy. I was
you would
getting all
have.
that.
You would have definitely driven me crazy, Shay.
I was getting all that money, extra money to pay for our. It wasn't even a lifestyle. It was just to pay
Right.
for day to day living because we weren't, and especially like when we were
Yeah.
getting like in Omaha. I'll never forget. I needed a jacket. I think I bought that in Maryland, and I needed a winter jacket. And I spent $300 on an
Oh
Eddie
my
Bauer
goodness.
jacket. I didn't need to buy no $300, but guess what? I
No.
kept that jacket. And literally till we moved out of the old house in December of last year, and I took a picture of it and threw it away because the jacket was like wear down. But I kept that jacket, and everybody in the house knew it was called the student loan jacket. because I'm
Oh my
paying for
goodness. I
it to
love
get the
that.
student loan
I
coat.
love that.
And so I kept that in remembrance of my
Yeah.
stupidity, like, of
Right.
taking all that extra money out. And then after a while, I'm like, I can't keep doing this because as you start seeing, and a lot of people don't check their statements, they don't
No.
understand the interest after,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, oh my God, you got to make sure you can afford this over
Right.
time and pay that
Right.
on time,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you have to have those conversations too. And that's the other part. Talking makes all this better, and that seems to be the theme with everything. If we communicate what's happening, then everybody's on the same team. But so many kids are
Mm.
coming out of school. I had no idea that this loan was like going to take me 20 years to pay off.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, well, you don't know the value of a dollar, number one. You don't know what a salary is going to look
Mm.
like after school.
Accrued interest,
All
all
these
those different
things.
basic
Yeah.
financial
Yeah.
terms. Yeah.
Because to them, $200,000 is just a number at that
Mm.
point. They
That's
have
a
no
house.
idea what that really means.
That's crazy.
I mean, I've told this story before about, the boyfriend who had a son going to school, and I was asked to help figure out what, he could afford, what was going on with loans and all that. And when I gave the numbers, because my thing is just education, let me give
Mm-hmm.
you everything. You make a
You
decision.
make your
It's on you
decision.
then.
Mm-hmm.
But I was not allowed to tell him the other options, like going to a state school, living at
Mm.
home, because he wanted to play lacrosse.
Mm.
And these other schools had programs, but he had been offered a scholarship from this other school, and it ends up costing him 53,000 a year to go to a
Whoa.
small private school to play lacrosse
With scholarships?
with a scholarship. Yes, because it was not a Division 1 team, so you couldn't do a scholarship for sports there. It was
Mm.
a, scholarship based on academics, and he was not an A student.
Oh, so like a
So
partial, really small.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So you come down to this, and it's like, is it worth paying $53,000 a year to
Mm.
play a game that you are not going to play professionally one day?
Mm.
So the answer, in my opinion, is no way.
No,
Uh,
no. Yeah,
when you
really.
could go to another school where it costs 6 grand a year, and they
Mm-hmm.
have an open team where you can try out. And I'm sure
Yeah.
he would have been a starter, absolutely. So it's just making those decisions, and the parents understanding that, their kid has to make the decision too. And if it's important to them, sure, foster that,
Yeah.
but let them know what it's going to cost and what it's going to take. And I think if we bring this back into it and we pray about it during these times, our conversations with our kids are going to be a lot shorter because they
Mm-hmm.
take the time to think on it. And I think it opens their heart too on what the right decision is.
I so agree. Yeah. And you know what? Not only with the communication piece and just the logic, rational decisions, seek counsel for guidance and pray over
Yeah.
any decision you're making. As Proverbs 15:22 says, without counsel, plans fail, but
Hmm.
with many advisors, they succeed. So we should look to our advisors, whether it's our parents, wise ones in our community, friends, family, professionals, Crusaders for Change, whatever it is, look to us to support you in making those wise decisions. So,
Exactly.
wow. Any final thoughts?
I would just say make sure your kids know all the options
Mm-hmm.
and don't push them in one specific direction.
Exactly.
It's okay if they choose something different than what you want as a parent.
Mm.
They are their own person. So, but just foster that curiosity through the time and be there for questions and be open about it.
I love that. I tell that to my family as we wrap up that, I've never pushed Alana to do one thing or another when it came to her career, her a college, you know,
Right.
adventure,
Yeah.
whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. She figured out her own major. She stuck with it. She changed maybe from BS to BA. Not maybe she did, but in the arts part of it, she
Yeah.
minored in music, but it was always what she wanted to do. My
Right.
parents was like, when I switched to psychology, especially my dad was like, no, you don't need to do that. You're not going to make no money. Da, 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 da. But you know what? I was following what I wanted to do, my passion.
Exactly.
So again,
Exactly.
I would end with, again, seek counsel from God. And, without counsel, plans fail. So God is there to support you. And so are many amazing professionals. And thank you for another great episode. So thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to follow us wherever podcasts are found. And remember, it's always better Yahweh's way. Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the crossroads of religion and money. Also, we would love to hear your feedback on today's episode, so please leave us a review or just tell us what's on your mind. And remember to follow our podcast. If you have any questions or suggestions of topics for us to discuss, please email us at yahweh@crusaders4change.org. To hear all of Yahweh's Money latest episodes, please visit us at www.crusaders4change.org or wherever podcasts are found. God bless.